Welcome to All Grown Up Now, Tales of a Checkered Past. I'm Kenneth D. King, podcasting from my studio near Union Square in New York City. This podcast is an evolution of the tale, All Grown Up Now, A Friendship in 3 Acts. This is Season 2, and it's called Tales of a Checkered Past. It's a collection of short stories from my salad days on up to the present. In each podcast, another self-contained story will be presented. These podcasts will be broadcast bi-weekly, so you get 2 a month. Enjoy. I was interviewed recently, and one of the questions was about the big decisions I've made in my life. I had to give it some thought, but what I realized was that the big decision in my early life after college that affected everything else was coming out. So this episode 52 is what I call coming out. When I see the gold boxes of Godiva chocolates, I get a little wistful and nostalgic. You see, I lost my virginity on Valentine's Day, and he gave me a 2-pound box of Godiva chocolates. Now, to my younger listeners, getting Godiva chocolates back in the day in Oklahoma City was a big damn deal. There was only one place that sold them, a very fancy store, long gone, called the Hightowers. They were $35 a pound at a time when my rent was $100 a month. Now, I didn't give it up to him just because of that, but it helped. For those that read the novel or listened to the podcasts, I didn't cover my coming out story because I didn't think it was really eventful. Over the years, though, people have remarked that it was courageous to come out in Oklahoma City in 1980. It may have been, but at the time, I was doing what I thought was the practical thing. These days, my mind goes back to that time in 1980. Coming out was one of the big 4 decisions in my life. Looking back, I see that coming out made all of the other decisions possible, partly because coming out put me into a completely different sphere than what was programmed for me if I were straight. Also, the strength I developed by going against what society of that place and time dictated showed me how to make the difficult and atypical choices that led to moving to San Francisco, starting my own business, and eventually moving to New York. When I was 4 years old in Salina, Kansas, I was fascinated with Superman, or rather, his tights. I knew somehow not to talk about it, but when he or any other tights-wearing superheroes could be seen on TV, I was there. I also adored Barbie, and traded my gun and holster set to my sister Kathy for her Barbie. Barbie is how I learned how to sew. Kathy had no use for Barbie being a tomboy, and later came out as well. We had that in common, that and wearing the same set of clothes before we went to school.
What?
Miss Ann bought clothes for both of us, boys' clothes. We were both the same size, and we really thought nothing of wearing them. It was only years later that I figured out that this was unusual. That's why I'm very territorial about my wardrobe. I had to share it then, but I'm definitely not sharing it now. In junior high, gym class was torture, for obvious reasons. When Miss Ann remarried and we moved to Oklahoma City between the 7th and 8th grade, I discovered that playing the violin was my salvation. If one was in the orchestra or the band, gym class wasn't required. I never was a gifted musician, but I stayed in that damn orchestra until my senior year. Then I didn't have to go to gym class. But moving to Oklahoma City brought bullying into my life on a daily basis. It started the first day of 8th grade when I was called faggot. I didn't know exactly what the word meant, but I could tell by the way it was said that this was not good. So for my entire high school days, I spent my time trying to keep my head down and pretend that all the bullying didn't bother me. Miss Ann was a model of understanding. "Well, what are you doing to deserve it?" she would ask. "If you weren't such a goddamn sissy, they'd leave you alone." Thanks. In my senior year of high school, I took a psychology class. I thought I might be able to figure out how to cure myself. By this time, my self-esteem was so low that I believed that dirt on the ground was higher on the evolutionary scale than I was. In the first week or so of class, I remember our teacher, Mr. Hodges, telling us that one has a 40% chance of curing one's own neurosis. That was a revelation of sorts. I thought, those are odds I can work with. And that started my climb from the pit of low self-esteem. I've written about my high school days before, but this piece of it was more significant in retrospect than I realized at the time. The gay thing, though, was something I didn't deal with. In my adolescence and high school, Miss Ann's misadventures with men complicated things so much that it was really easy to park it on the back burner. When I hear of other gay men talking about what they got up to in high school, I think, wow, I didn't do anything. I figured that until I got myself sorted out, I just wouldn't do anything. College came along. I was so busy in college, working and carrying my college studies, that I was able to keep the gay thing at bay longer. Now, when one operates on 3 hours of sleep for months at a time, there isn't much motivation to pursue difficult issues. And this, to me, was still a difficult issue. Then came my last year in college. It occurred to me that I'd be finishing up soon, and my excuse to avoid the gay thing would be gone. Also, I realized that with just a 40-hour job, I would want a social life. I'd have some time then. And my grandma was asking pointed questions about when I was going to get married, to which I would respond that I needed to get a career established before I could even think of having a family. This sounded very noble.
Uh-huh.
Notice it was Grandma, not Miss Ann, who was asking. Miss Ann was more embarrassed about my choice of major, fashion merchandising. The year before I graduated, I had changed jobs from C.R. Anthony's to Dillard's. Now, I was in big boy retail, not a hokey hick store run by some family members. Dillard's was one of the fancy stores in Oklahoma City. A whole gaggle of stylish queens worked there, as happens in big boy retail. One particular queen was a guy named Steve Winchester. Steve Winchester, as I remember him, was my height, good-looking, stylish, with wavy auburn hair and blue eyes. He was obviously gay and worked one department over from me in the stationery department. I managed lamps and pictures at the time before moving over to display. He made no bones about letting me know that he thought I was gay. I would laugh and be very non-committal. But I was fascinated with him. He didn't seem to be tortured about being gay. Rather, he seemed to be enjoying himself. Steve invited me to a New Year's Eve party. It was New Year's Eve, 1979. There were several other people from Dillard's there, including his friend and later mine, Penny Portwood. Penny looked exactly like Jane Russell in the film Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, except she was 6'3". All the gay boys loved her. She was tall and fabulous and outrageous. Penny was my date for the party. As I remember it, at midnight, when the new decade turned and everyone was making noise and hugging and kissing, This guy turned to me, pulled me to him, and gave me my first full-on kiss. My first kiss. And my head exploded. I didn't protest. I didn't freak out. I didn't deny. I just stood there and looked at him and knew that he was right. In the juniors department, there were two college girls, Heidi and Mandy. Heidi was the solid citizen, edgy and smart. Mandy was the blonde tramp. She looked like Charlene Tilton in the TV series Dallas. One day, I was in the stockroom talking to Heidi. All of a sudden, she looked at me and asked, "Are you gay?" And I knew this was a pivotal point in my life. Yes. And right then, I felt weight lift off of my shoulders. The weight of always hiding, dodging, denying, pretending. I wasted so much creative energy doing this, and I wasn't fooling anyone, including myself. I realized it wasn't going away. It wasn't a phase. So I should just accept it and go on from there. All that happened in one instant. Now, as an aside, my friend Stuart says I couldn't pass. People could see that I'm gay in satellite photos from space. When I think back on this moment, though, I put it at the head of a line of important decisions at forks in the road on my life's journey. Coming out made everything possible. It made moving to San Francisco possible. It made starting my own business possible. It made moving to New York possible. And it's made many other things I've done possible. But back to that day in the stockroom in the junior department at Dillard's in Oklahoma City. Mandy came in right after I'd said yes to Heidi. And Heidi excitedly turned and told her that I just came out as gay. Mandy was baffled. Pointing to her tits, she said, "I just can't believe that you don't look at these round, luscious breasts, gack, and want them."
No way.
Oy. There was and still is that type of clueless person who thinks they can change someone. Funny. When your secret is out and you aren't hiding and ducking for cover, you have a whole new outlook, or at least I did. It manifested in standing up for myself. Before, I was the nice guy. I would always do what people asked me to do. I didn't want to attract attention or tell people what I wanted. I let people walk all over me. But after coming out, people thought I had gone to hell in a handbasket when I went gay. That's only because I learned the power of no, and I learned how to say it forcefully. This happened one day in the aisle in front of the lamp department at Dillard's. The manager of the stereo department across the aisle was a dried-up shrew named Diane. She was perpetually mad at the world. From time to time, after I started there, I tried to be pleasant and helpful, only to get heaped with abuse. Before I just let it go. But one day, she went too far, and I just wasn't having it. "Hey!" I yelled. "Just what's your problem?" "You!" she yelled back. "And what have I done to you? I've done my level best to be nice to you, and now you treat me like shit." A crowd started gathering. "You're too nice," she sneered. "You know, when someone's too nice, I just have to be mean. I'm sorry, but I can't help it." "Yes, you are sorry," I shouted back. "You're a sorry bitch. A sorry, miserable bitch. You can go fuck yourself." At that, the crowd gasped. They had never heard me talk like that. Diane was frozen to the spot with surprise. From now on, you can go fuck off and fuck yourself, you fucking bitch. And then I turned on my heel and stomped off. From then, she was polite to me, as was everyone else. And that was part of coming out. That was the day I decided that I didn't want to swallow that side of me. More freedom. Part of coming out, for me, was also about standing up for myself and taking what I needed and wanted. And that's what it was. Freedom. Freedom to be, freedom to say no, freedom to explore just who exactly I was. Back to Valentine's Day, 1980. I'll say it. I dated my boss. I don't recommend it. It was a mistake. But his name was David. That day at work, he brought a wrapped package and gave it to me. I unwrapped it. This was the 2-pound box of Godiva chocolates. He looked at me, gave me a swoon-inducing kiss, and said, "Happy Valentine's Day." That evening, we went to the Free Spirit, which was the gay disco in an old Episcopalian church, and they were having their kiss and makeup party. The poster said, you could kiss, you could make up, or you could wear makeup. David and I spent most of the evening dancing. Later in the evening, we were sitting in the back of the place, and he gave me another swoon-inducing kiss. Then he asked, "Let's go to my place?" As I said earlier, I lost my virginity on Valentine's Day, and he gave me a 2-pound box of Godiva chocolates. When I see those gold boxes, I get all nostalgic. I get nostalgic because I remember the freedom I felt that summer. I was young, pretty, had good clothes, went dancing, and started to live. That life has had its ups and downs, and more than my share of adventures. But it was all made possible, and has all been made possible, by coming out. Thanks for listening. You can get the audiobook All Grown Up Now on iTunes, Audible, and Amazon, or from my website, allgrownupnow.com. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play. If you have any questions, you can reach me through the website, allgrownupnow.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Kenneth D. King, on Facebook at Kenneth D. King Design, or on my main website, KennethDKing.com.